Here are 3 fine nibbed pens, all Sheaffers, and I'll draw with them a little bit here. I'll draw my little bugs that I seem to like so much. Each of these pens are really quite fine. One a little bit more than others, and there's one that's maybe prettier than others. The green one here has a really nice range from thin to thick, as you can see in the drawings of the little mayflies or whatever these are. You can just barely touch the paper and get a almost invisible line, and then you press down and that line becomes 4 times thicker. But 4 times 0.5 is 0.25 is still only 1. So, and then you can turn it upside down like this and even get a finer line, and there's still molecules of ink that get down to the paper and transfer one molecule at a time. So that's the green one. Let's try the red one. The red one is the finest it can go is a little broader than the green. It's a little smoother. Any pen that's fine will appear or have a suggestion of scratchiness to it, because you're writing again with a much tinier nib on the paper, and of course it's going to scratch. It'll sound scratchy. It won't actually tear the paper, but it'll sound scratchy. Turning this upside down too, you do get a finer line. Of course, you can't vary it. Both of these are pretty similar. This one maybe starts out a little bit broader and doesn't get, it gets as broad as that one, but it doesn't, the range doesn't seem as much because it starts out a little bit broader. And finally, the last pen is a older, by a decade or so, Sheaffer pen. Has these stripes in the plastic, which maybe when it's not full, I shouldn't do that. I'll just dip it here. Should never start a movie without knowing the lines. This one is sort of in between the other two. It has a fine that's very fine. You can turn it upside down again and get a finer line. Why is this one different? How is this one different from the others? Probably because it isn't full. Let me fill it up. Sorry about that. Yeah, this one is interesting. I don't want to say inconsistent, because that isn't right, but it has it sort of surprises you every time you write with it. It's like, oh, okay, that's what the pen is supposed to do. The other ones, I think I knew what the line was going to be before I put it down. This one, maybe the shape of the nib is slightly less round, so that you get a different, depending on the angle of the pen to the paper, you get a different line quality. It's something that it's hard to describe, but you could feel it immediately. I think the sort of variety of what you expect you think you're going to get sort of it's surprising. So this is really an interesting pen to write with, but I think some people would find it a little confusing, because it seems to have a mind of its own. And sometimes artists don't like to have pens have a mind of their own. But they're all fine. This is probably the least fine. Though again, it's hard to say because of its weirdness. This actually, if I were to take one pen sketching that, let's say if I was going to go to a crowded restaurant and just want to do sort of gestural drawings, I think this might be the pen I would use, because of that quality. I sometimes like using tools that I don't have complete control over, because I have a built-in excuse for the drawing not turning out. Oh, I was using my pen that I can't control. Okay, yeah, okay, fine. Now it's just sometimes it's really fun to have the line be a surprise, and every time you make a line, oh, okay, that's going to be that kind of a line, so now I have to make, it's sort of interesting. It's not, like a roller coaster, but kind of like a roller coaster. You're swooping around and going up and down and slow and fast, and so it's interesting. I don't know if other people have tools that have that same issue. On one of my iPad apps, some of the drawing apps that try to imitate sort of a pencil line do so with these sort of gray lines that appear kind of random, and they sort of fill in a certain way that it imitates a pencil line. And I like drawing with those because I cannot control them. If I control them, I would be too persnickety. And because I can't control them, I free myself up. So I guess that's what this pen does for me. Because I can't, the lines, because of the way I hold the pen, if I held the pen exactly the same way when I was drawing every single time, I would know what was happening. But if I'm moving my hand around and drawing this way and drawing that way, and it's a little less easy to predict. And sometimes that's fun. So maybe you have the same kinds of relationships to tools that you can't control. Yeah, it's fun. One of my fellows in grad school taught a drawing class there, and one of the things he did to put everyone on the same playing field so that whether you were a talented artist or a beginner or just clumsy trying to take an art course because you think it's going to be an easy credit, he had everyone drawing with the same tools, and it was a tool that no one had ever used before, and you're wondering what the heck was it. And what he did was he brought into class a hot dog and ketchup, and everyone drew pictures with hot dogs and ketchup, and no one had ever drawn like that before, but everyone was coming up with interesting drawings, and also they couldn't control, it. You can't make the hot dog work in the same way that you can make a pencil work. It flops around in your hand, and I think what he was teaching, in addition to you can make a mark of some sort with anything, is that it really freed you up. I think that was part of his, lesson. And he probably also was trying to suggest that, art isn't all that precious. Not that anyone was making art, they were making drawings. But anyway, it just was an interesting thing. So sometimes having a tool, back to my point, that is a little bit unpredictable is interesting. I think part of the reason that this pen is unpredictable is there's some ink that's probably, I haven't used this in a while, and there's some ink that's probably dried up in the feed, obstructing some of the ink flow. But there are still pens that are like that are a little uncontrollable. But I think in this case it is the flow of the ink is clogged. But these are all each one of these pens can do a very, very thin line, and sometimes having a pen that has a very, very tiny range from its thinnest to its thickest is really a treat. Do a couple more with the red pen here. They're all so different. Gosh. We keep on reaffirming the fact that I need to have as many pens as I do because they're all so different. And these pens, if I was using these pens for calligraphy, not drawing, or writing, not drawing, I would have a completely different relationship with the pens, the lines that they make, because I've been making these standardized calligraphic lines, swoops and stuff, and these pens work perfectly fine for that, which I will show you. So this one can have that sort of range. Love. That's about as romantic as I get. Lust. That's better. See, you can see here that the green one starts thinner, and gets as thick as the red one, but the range differences is more obvious. And finally the gray one. Yes, I know my left hand is covered with ink. This one is, again, interesting. It seems darker. Maybe there was some black ink in here, which is why it was skipping. Not skipping, but just inconsistent. This one sort of is the thickest all around. Starts thicker, goes thicker, and so anyway, that's it. So my hand here is covered with purple ink because I had a costume malfunction. Not a costume malfunction, but a tool malfunction. I thought the pen was empty, and I was checking it, and suddenly ink came out of it all over me. Yeah, the red and green pen are great. This one is good, and it will be great once I clean it. But back to the bugs. So we have our little cacophony of little mayflies buzzing around. And if there were a bat in the room, the bat would have a nice dinner. Anyway, there you go. Thank you for watching.